I'm going to date myself here briefly, but it was back in the late 90s when I first had the opportunity to meet our guest today. He was busy winning the 1998 Buick Open, for those of you who remember the Buick Open. And Billy Mayfair still loves the game, still playing it really well at the PGA Tour Champions level. And so it's good to see you again. I know we've seen each other since then a couple times with the Ally Challenge and some other events, but I always take myself back to those days at Warwick Hills. And I have to think that, you've won 5 times on tour. I got to think one of those stands out in your mind, like a trip to Grand Blanc.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited that Ally signed with them and that we get to go back there every year because um, going back there to Flint every year was just real special. All the players enjoyed it. It was a small town. The people came out in droves. And to have my name on that Walk of Fame there in front of the clubhouse
Yeah.
really is an honor. But like I said, anytime you win somewhere and you get to go back, it always brings back special memories. That's for sure.
You know, I love to explore this concept of winning with you in the world of professional golf because I always find it humorous when somebody like Scheffler wins the Masters by 4 shots, and
Mhm.
everybody's talking about how it was a blowout. He ran away with it. It was boring. It was an off. I try to remind people that's one putt per day for 4 days. This is
Mhm.
this is not exactly a blowout where you would want to look away for very long because in one swing it could go the other way. How hard is it to win even now in the PGA Tour Champions world?
Well, it's hard to win in any level. I mean, at the Masters level, to the tour, to the Champions Tour, to the LPGA, to college, and all that. I mean, there's such great competition out there. To win is very difficult to do, and do what Scotty did to win at the Bay Hill, and then come back and back it up back to back weeks at the Players Championship, and then by all means, he should almost won Houston, last week, but. It's pretty incredible what he's doing. I even think you go back and look when Tiger was dominant and all that stuff. Tiger won and he won a lot of tournaments, but it sure does seem like he worked a lot harder than Scotty Scheffler is right now. And I know Scotty's a different type of person, different type of swing, and all that, but he really has some confidence rolling to go out there and battle the weather the first 2 days as well as he did, and then to keep it together and play so good on the weekend. And yeah, it looked like a walk away, but I'm sure he's going to say the opposite, that it wasn't. But it just tells you how confident he is, and how well he's playing, and how much his game is above everybody else's right now.
When you look around and you see all the players that surround you on the range that you're competing with and against, and then when you look back to the regular tour and you see somebody like Scheffler, I'm reminded that there are so many approaches to this game that you would probably not coach if you were building a player from ground zero. I don't think anybody would coach somebody to have the footwork that Scotty does because you would injure yourself or you would just fall down. Uh,
Right.
I'm sure you've heard a few times over the years that you have a unique putting stroke, right? So that's
Yep.
not something that you would see come out of the golf factory, so to speak. Uh,
Right.
what has it been like for you in your journey to stay true to what works for you versus giving in to the voices that keep saying, "Oh, if you would just," because you've heard it a million times.
Yeah, it's probably the one of the most difficult things, other than trying to switch equipment. Everybody has a new driver or a new ball or new something out here for you to try, but to stick with your golf swing and your putting stroke, the stuff that's worked for you, that's gotten you out here, it's very difficult. And I'm sure Scotty has the same problem. I mean, I grew up watching Jim Furyk. I mean, there's not a person out here who would want to teach their kids or teach their kids now how to swing like Jim Furyk. But boy, he got the job done, and there's no doubt. I think people got to get kind of a way to swing the way Tiger did for a while, because Tiger, swung so hard at it, he hurt himself, and he's paying the ultimate price for it now. But um, it's very tempting between equipment out here, and we always want to be perfect. We are perfectionists out here. We're at our top of our level, and we're always trying to get a little bit better. But like you said, you look down the range, and I saw Lee Jansen yesterday, and all those guys, and they still make good swings at it and hit the ball well. And we're having a lot more fun out here. It's a little more laid back out here in the Champions Tour, but we still want to beat each other really bad come Friday. That's for sure.
In that setting of the Champions Tour, where pretty much everybody has tasted success to some degree. Everybody's kind of been in the winner's circle. It used to be that you would hold up a giant cardboard novelty check, and then when the numbers got too big, they stopped doing that because the optics weren't that good, and it became a direct deposit. But everybody has had that moment, or most everybody has had that moment. How hard is it to recapture that moment? Because now you're competing against players who have been in the crucible of final round pressure versus maybe catching somebody that's new to that and might fold under that pressure.
Well, we're all human. There's no doubt. But everyone who plays out here on the Champions Tour, like you said, has won, and most of us out here have won majors and multiple times out there. So we do know how to win. Um, the hardest thing out here still is that the mind and the eyes are still really good, but sometimes that brainwave will send it down to the body, and the body just doesn't want to quite do
Yeah.
what it wants to do. And I think that was a good example of even Tiger last week at the Masters. You could still see his brain working and functioning around that golf course, but he tried to hit shots and his body just won't let him do it. So it's kind of the same struggle we have out here on the Champions Tour. We still want to feel like we're 24, 25 years old, but our body's 50, 60 years old, and it isn't going to quite do the same. But, we all know how to win. If we didn't know how to win, we wouldn't be out here doing this. So it goes back to, again, I think you get someone down the last 9 holes and we all know how to win. So it's a lot of fun and it's competitive.
I was thinking about the videos I've seen of Patty Harrington swinging, I don't know, 120 miles an hour doing his speed training and things. And I keep thinking, because I'm 56 years old, so I
Mm-hmm.
could I do some speed training like that? And I think I would injure myself. In fact, I kind of think I have injured myself. You have been successful in this game without ever being considered one of the longest hitters on your tour, right? So where did you make up for that distance disparity? Not that you were super short, but there are some really, really long hitters in your day, and there are now. So, how do you stay competitive? What part of your game becomes sharper if you're going to be, 20, 30 yards back?
Well, it's kind of the same message I try to give young kids when they're growing up and all that. You still got to be good from 120 yards on end. You
Yeah.
got to keep the ball in play. That's probably the biggest change I've seen in watching college players. I was watching a college event last night on TV, and these kids are hitting a long way, but they're swinging so hard at it they don't know which way it's going. And I was very fortunate. I thought I always kept the ball in play very well. I hit a lot of fairways. I hit a lot of greens. And the weeks the putter was nice to me, I was very competitive and won. Um, Out here on the Champions Tour, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, Bernhard Langer, look at him. He is competitive all the time. But there is nobody better out here on the Champions Tour than Bernhard from 120 yards on in.
Hmm.
He hits it straight. I think he has 6 or 7 woods now in the bag, so that ought to tell you he's trying to hit it high. But still, there was nobody from 120 yards in that's better than Bernhard Langer, and that's why he was, so good on the big tour and all that. Podrick, we have to remember that he's always been a weightlifter. He's always trained hard. He's had machines built in the bottom of his house where it's helped his swing and do this. So it's, yeah, he's doing some things different now to try to increase the swing speed, but his body's kind of more used to it because he's done it his whole career. Where we get in trouble is if we haven't done it our whole career, and then at 48, 49 years old, we're trying to still swing it that hard. That's when you're going to hurt yourself. So Podrick is definitely a unique breed. He's playing well, and it's definitely helping him. But this is something he's done almost his entire career. This isn't something new just because he turned 50.
Yeah. How hard is it to resist the urge to do some of those things and put your body at risk? If you're chasing distance, I don't know that there are many other ways to do it than get moving a lot faster, but
Well, yeah, there is, and it's tempting at times, but I've never been that way. I still think if I hit it well and hit a good solid, I'm trying to hit a solid tee shot.
yeah.
If I do that, I think I can go for most of the par fives. I'll still have pretty short irons into the par fours, and I'll have my opportunities to score. I guess I've been more of a guy to stand on the tee and try to where do I want to hit it in the fairway, instead of how far do I want to hit it in that fairway. And that's just me. But again, I've tried to keep my body in pretty good shape. I'm trying to stay as healthy as I can so that, I can stay injury free. I mean, you can't swing it hard. You can't beat anyone out here on any tour if you're injured. That's for sure.
How vividly do you remember the final moments of the 98 Buick Open? Does every win have a special spot in your memory bank?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you always remember where you won and what you did. And what I remember the most about the Buick was that all the guys that kind of challenged me on Sunday were an hour ahead of me. And they made a lot of runs. I think Andrew McGee, Scott Verplank made a huge run that day. Scott chipped in on 17. He hit it way right of the green and he chipped in. And of course, you know how loud 17 was. It is still, but how loud it was during the Buick. And I remember I was on the 10th green at the time. And I knew these guys had posted numbers, and I knew that if I could just make a few birdies, you know, on 13 and 16 coming in, that I would have a great chance to win. So I was very fortunate there. The guys that were right around me that year weren't playing real hot. It was all the guys ahead of me. So when I got to those birdie holes, I made the birdies and had a 2 or 3 shot lead, so could kind of coast on in.
You know, we those of us who were at that tournament for years and years, we so vividly remember the excitement of it. And I understand it was another stop on the schedule, but of course, for the people in that town, it's a big deal. And I'm reminded of one of the great, I guess, appeal factors of the professional men's game was we knew that every player had to perform or they were going to miss the cut, and they were going home empty pocketed for that particular week.
That week. Yeah.
I totally understand why for players, the changes that are taking place are much better for the bottom line, and they relieve a lot of that pressure of the missed cuts. And now you have a stipend and you have this cushion, so to speak. But I'm pretty sure also that the men's professional game at the tour level is not in a very good place with fan popularity right now. And we're seeing some of that borne out in the TV ratings, even from Augusta. And I'm wondering, for a guy who's been out there for a while, for a long while, uh, how do you assess the health of the men's professional game here in April of 2024?
Well, I still think it's very popular. I still think you're going to always have that diehard golfer who's going to turn the golf on Saturday and Sunday. Now they can turn it on Thursday and Friday and watch the PGA Tour. In my opinion, I don't listen. I don't blame any of the guys who went to the LIV Tour. Most of the guys that went there have had some issues with the tour, so they wanted to go somewhere else. But you can't ever blame anybody for wanting to take care of themselves financially, taking care of their families in the future to be more financially and all that. I don't blame them at all. I still think golf is in a great spot. I think you're given, because a lot of these guys went to LIV, you're seeing a lot of the great young players coming up, and they're doing very well on the PGA Tour. So I think there's just more pie out there for everybody. And I know everybody wants everyone to play, and everybody wants to play the best players in the world, but I sometimes wonder why the PGA Tour is even worried about LIV. I really do. People are still going to watch the PGA Tour. They want to watch the PGA Tour, and that's that. I'm not knocking LIV by any means. I've watched it on TV. I've been to one day event there. I watched it, and it's more of a exhibition to me. And I think the players realize that. And then you kind of hear it right now from some of the players.
Yeah.
John Rahm, you can tell he's not happy. He wants this thing solved. He wants to get back so he can play both tours. We've grown up thinking about the PGA, dreaming about playing on the PGA Tour. And you're used to that system, and that the way 2 days you make a cut and you play on the weekend and all that. And LIV is different than that. As I said again, I don't blame any of the players for going over to LIV. I always am kind of wondering if it is as lucrative as they say. They're saying they're making all these millions and millions of dollars and all this. Sometimes that doesn't always show up in your bank account. I don't know that. But, there's no wrong with having a $20 million purse on the PGA Tour. I think the guys earn it. What was it? The guy who finished second last week made $2 million.
Yeah.
What
did you win for your 98 Buick title?
I believe I won. It was 180,000.
I thought it was in that range back there,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
like all the money that the entire world possessed at that time, I'm sure.
Well, fortunately, my year in 1995, I won the Western Open and the Tour Championship.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were the two biggest purses on the PGA Tour that year. And I won 240 at the Western, and I won 350 at the Tour Championship.
Were they big novelty checks?
One was.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
still have
big
it. I
fan of the
still have it
big.
in my room. Yep.
Yeah, I like
You
the
know,
big novelty checks. It gives you something to hang up in your man cave.
it does. It does, and it's something for people to see. And you got to remember too, golf is such a unique sport where you can look at the paper the next day and see how much someone made.
Yeah, yeah.
There is you don't see that in football or basketball or hockey like that. And I've talked to other athletes, and they said, "How can you stand that?" And I said, "Well, unfortunately, IRS can see it too. That's probably the worst part of it." But we're very unique where people can actually see how it is. But I'm glad to see that the LPGA Tour is playing for some more money. It's definitely as popular as the game is. I still think it's very popular. I think people love playing it.
Yeah.
It's one of the unique sports where you can actually get close to the players.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the day after, 2 day or a week after we leave, you can actually go out and play the same golf course as we do. So that's a very unique thing. If you were out in Phoenix the week of the Waste Management Open, you wouldn't think golf was in any danger whatsoever. I mean, people were out there enjoying it and watching golf. And I still think golf is very popular. Yes. Listen, sometimes controversy in sports is good. And people will say that, and golf's never been that way. And they're not used to it. They're used to that being, in baseball or football and all that. But now you have a little controversy in golf, and sometimes that brings people in who maybe doesn't watch golf all the time. Maybe that brings them in to watch it. So, I don't know. I just really do believe that golf's still in a great state. And we're such a unique sport because everybody can play it and everybody can play where we play. So as long as we keep doing that, I think it's going to be okay.
Is any part of you kind of concerned about maybe the Champions Tour getting swallowed up in all of this back and forth with Saudis and Monahan and what they're trying to work out? Is there any concern, any scuttlebutt within the locker room amongst the Champions Tour guys?
Well, we're always watching it. That's for sure. You have to remember something. No matter if the LIV players on the LIV, the tour, what they just will affect not just us. It affects everybody. There was a rumor this week about Rory McIlroy,
Right,
maybe joining the LIV next year. And you have to understand that Roy's up there high on the money list. If he goes to LIV and gets suspended, then his name comes off, and one other name from down on the career money list moves up. So one guy who may not be able to play on the Champions Tour might get to play on the Champions Tour now. So it does affect us. And here's the other thing that I get real tired of hearing. Everyone thinks since we're on the Champions Tour that we have all this money and that we're just out here playing golf and that we made all our money on the PGA Tour. That's not always correct. We've all had, bad investments in our life, ex-wives, child support. There's a lot more things that we've gone through out here. There's a lot of guys still playing out here for paychecks, and people forget that. We're human too. We've made, it's a hard life. And some players, some other sports, you can, go through a divorce and you just sign a new contract and you're set good. It doesn't quite happen that way out here. There's some guys out here that are still playing, and the impression is we're just out here playing and we're financially, all of us are wonderful. And that's not always the case. And it is hard when I think Chris DeMarco made a comment, that, what 3 or 4 guys last week at the Players Championship made more money than our entire purse was, that same week. So everybody's allowed pay increases in this world. It happens even if you work at McDonald's, you're allowed to pay increases sometime. The Champions Tour has not had a pay increase in almost 20 years.
Really?
We're trying to get the purses up. We're trying to get them up, but it just isn't going that fast. And we're concerned with it because we're entitled to have a pay increase just as everybody else is in the world.
Yeah, and all the battling over TV contracts and exposure for live versus tape delayed. And I know that probably the two main combatants in that room are the LPGA and the Champions Tour, because everybody wants to be live. Nobody wants to be tape delayed or preempted by a playoff when you thought you were going to be on that. And we're largely missing a lot of the Nelly Korda run, which is crazy. We're missing a lot of the Champs Tour tournaments, and I keep thinking to myself, is there a solution that would have one of the tours conduct its tournaments midweek so that they have a Wednesday finish or a Thursday finish, but then would the public pay attention to it? So it's all this. I understand why it's a difficult solution to arrive at, but it's also one that's got to be fixed, because I don't think your tour, I don't think the ladies tour are being very well served by how things currently are, because the big elephant in the room is the PGA Tour that most everybody in the golf fandom world is mad at. So I don't see how it works out.
No, it's a tough situation right now. It really is, and we keep watching, and the PGA Tour, they're not worried about the Champions Tour. They're not worried about that, or maybe even, they're probably more concerned sometimes about the Corn Ferry Tour than they are the
Yeah,
Champions Tour,
yeah, that's true.
and that needs to change, because I think more people recognize our names on the Champions Tour. I mean, we talked about Ernie Els, we talked about Padraig Harrington, Steve Stricker, all these great guys that are playing that people know them and enjoy watching.
Yep.
I know, I can tell you, when we went back to Minneapolis for the 3M Championship, when the Champions Tour was there, everyone loved it. The crowds were huge. Everyone enjoyed it so much. A few years later, they went to a PGA Tour event there, and I know the people just did not enjoy it quite as much, because they didn't know who these guys were. Who
Yeah.
are these guys? Where'd they go to college? I've never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a different breed, and that's where the Champions Tour is so unique, because most of the people in the golf world recognize, they can look down the list of the entire field and know everyone in that tournament,
I've
and that's hard to do these days.
Yeah, I've told so many people that if you're given the choice, I know it's not often, but if you're given the choice to play in one tour's pro-am, might I suggest you play in the Champions Tour Pro-Am, because you are going to have a great time. I would put the LPGA right after that, and I would actually put the PGA Tour at the bottom of that list. Not that it's a horrible experience, but the best experience is really for what you guys are doing. And you look around, and everywhere you look are guys that you've known, especially for those of us who are a little bit older. So you mentioned a few minutes ago, Billy, how real life is a part of every professional golfer's world. You're people, you have families, you have issues, you have health things and concerns, and you have all those things. And one of the reasons that you and I are connecting today is to talk about one of those items, which is uh, it's autism. And
Mhm.
that's a real important part of your life, and it's a part of what messaging that you want to share with everybody. So let's kind of start that discussion by letting me ask you, what does autism mean to Billy Mayfair?
That's a good question. I was diagnosed 6 years ago with autism, very high functioning autism, and I'm still learning every day more and more about autism. We had an incident on the PGA Tour with some rules, um, and I was illegally disqualified at a PGA Tour event, and I should have stood up more. I should have been bolder in my decision. My wife was there. She saw the way that I reacted to things, and knew at that point that we needed to make a change and do something in our lives. And she had me tested for autism.
Hmm.
And I was diagnosed with it. I fought her tooth and nail. I'm the normal one. Everyone else is weird. Everyone else has got something wrong with them. I'm the normal one, and that's the attitude. But I finally did, and even after I got the test results back, it took me a few weeks to read through them and understand it. But when I did, a kind of a light bulb went off in my head, and I understood why I had problems sometimes in school with certain teachers and certain classes and all that. And uh, basically, for me, with the autism, is it's just, for me, it's sometimes the way I read facial cues, the way I understand things, and sometimes the way that I come across is just maybe a little bit different than everybody else. So I'm looked at a little bit differently and all that. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the 5 or 6 years that I've been studying this and was concerned with it is that sometimes I just need an extra moment to think about something.
Hmm.
And that's where sometimes I get in trouble on the golf course. They're very strictly about pace of play and this and that. And sometimes I just need an extra moment to collect my thoughts and get everything together, and before I can execute what I want to do. And I've learned to get better. I've gotten better at it, I believe. But my wife and I have gotten on this crusade, and we're trying to help people and make autism more aware, especially in young athletes. And we're finding out there's a lot of people out there, and it's actually been a very challenging, fun enjoyment doing this, because you get to talk to a lot of neat people and do a lot of neat things, and try to get the word out there. And there's nothing better than when you have someone, a parent, come up to you and say, you know, my son's having this same type of problem, or doing this, and we had him tested, and you've helped him so much. I mean, you think a birdie putt's a lot of fun to make. That's even more fun.
Do the challenges between the ropes mean that your caddy has to have an extra level of awareness to maybe slow things down, or make sure that everybody's on the same page with the number or the idea of the shot that's coming up?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's times. I mean, there's days when it won't really affect me, but there's days that there are. One of the things that he has to do, and my wife caddied for me for quite a while on the Champions Tour. If I have a ruling, she or my caddy needs to be right there so that I know what the ruling is. Is when it's explained to me that I understand it correctly.
Okay.
And that's unfortunately how the disqualification kind of happened. They explained it to me, and I interpreted it a different way. And I still think I was right. The USGA says I'm right, and but you know, that's past history, and we just got to move on. So it was one of the things that with my challenge, I have to have my caddy next to me when we're doing rulings, or an official comes to talk to me, so I can completely understand what's going on.
It never ceases to surprise me how often there's uncertainty about a ruling during a competitive round, because, you know, we would like to think everybody knows every nuance and every aspect of the rule book. And then I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised. You know, a player will request relief from something that you're like, you're not going to get relief from that. And then suddenly they do. And the vagaries of the golf rule book, I always wonder how amateurs are expected to get it right when we have so many rulings at the professional level. How often do you find yourself surprised? Maybe not even in disagreement, just surprised that that's actually the way the rule reads.
Quite a bit, quite a bit. I mean, you have to understand why do tour pros and LPGA ask for rulings so often? They want to make sure that the ruling's done correctly. Once you ask for a ruling,
Yeah.
even if the official gives it to you wrong, you can't be penalized or disqualified. So it's kind of a safety barrier in that way. The problem with it all is the USGA is changing rules
Yeah.
a lot. About every 6 months, they're trying to change something. And when you're doing it for a living, you're used to something that you've had, you know, one particular ruling, looking for a golf ball for 5 minutes. You know, we've had that forever. Now it's 3 minutes. And, you know, the USGA needs to slow down on these rules, you know, with the flag stick in and all that. And I understand they're trying to improve the game and all that, but they don't think about the people who do this for a living,
Yeah.
are out there every week. And you can't call for a ruling every time. But the reason why a lot of players, and you look at them on TV, why is he asking for relief there, or why is he doing that? It's just simply because we just don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
We know the rule. We know how to take relief from the bleacher and all that, but we just don't want to come after the round and be questioned or anything. So we call for a ruling, because once we call for that ruling, we know we're safe. Even if it's a wrong ruling or a bad drop, we're safe in that situation. But to answer your question with the rules, I think what's really difficult is the USGA is changing the rules so often. And they say, well, it's every 3 years. No, they're changing it out every year to every 6 months. They're changing rules out there. And when that happens, golfers who do it and been doing it for so many years, it's something that's hard to change.
Yeah, that makes sense. I, you know, we've all heard, and you maybe have experienced the old stories of Seve taking the ultimate advantage of the rules and sometimes stretching that boundary a little bit further
Yeah.
than it was supposed to be. Does that kind of thing still happen anymore? I mean, I know he was a unique, once in a lifetime figure, a swashbuckler who would get up and down from the parking lot and all of those things. But the stories about him, you know, wanting relief from something that made no sense, or taking advantage of all of it, there's a reason they're legendary stories, because they don't happen every day. But does it still happen where maybe you're in a group, and I'm not asking you to name any names, but maybe you're in a group where you look across at a conversation with a rules official and you just have to roll your eyes because you're like, man, he's trying this again.
Yes, yes, it happens. But have we, have you ever let's come to the thought that have we ever thought that maybe Seve was artistic and
Oh,
maybe he was calling for those rulings to give his brain a couple minutes to just kind of slow down?
I've never
You know,
thought of that.
you have to wait for, I mean, at some tournaments, they have rule officials on the majors, are usually on every hole, so they're right there. But most of the time, you got to wait 2 or 3 minutes or a couple minutes for the rules officials to get there. And, you know, I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to point fingers at anyone, but I know there's times when you call for a rules official just because you need to take a moment and gather yourself. And this is the great way to do it, because now you wait for the ruling. You're not going to get that drop,
Yeah.
and you're going to do this or that, but it gives your brain, it gives the person a few minutes just to kind of take a deep breath and settle and get back into the being focused on what he wants to do. So
Yeah.
I've played with Seve a lot. Some of the places he has hit it, I would call for a ruling too. There's no doubt about it. But sometimes there's a lot of other ways, methods to our madness than just calling for the ruling.
That makes sense. How's your game today? How you doing?
I'm in a good place right now.
Good.
Like I said, my wife's been caddying for me for the last few years. I've gotten, she's off the bag now. I've got a good guy on the bag, and he's helped me a lot out there. But, the last 3 weeks, I've found my putter again. I'm starting to roll my rock really good. And if that happens, you always have a good chance to win.
So for a guy who has had his success largely because of proficiency on the greens, how often have you been tempted to swap out the putter, change a grip, and do those things that some might interpret as a sign of panic versus I just need something fresh to look at and to feel?
Oh, that a lot depends on the player. There's some players out here on the Champions Tour, that will try something new every week, and there's others who will stick with clubs for months at a time. I've always been the type of player that I kind of usually stick with them for quite a while. Yeah, I'm also one who knows as soon as I hold something in my hand or I hit a putt or a drive with it, I know if I'm going to like it or not like it. But there's no doubt. There's just sometimes you just get tired of looking at that driver or that 3-wood or that putter, and you need something fresh
Yeah.
and gets you excited. You got something new in the bag. You're excited. You can't wait to get out there to putt. And sometimes a lot of guys play very well when they do that.
Where's the putter that won the 98 Buick?
It is actually in Flint. It's actually in a case. They have a little case there, and I
Oh, it
put
is. It's at the club.
yeah.
Was
Yeah.
I'm surprised you gave it up. I thought maybe it would make an
I
honor.
putted a few more years with it, but when I changed putters, I gave it to them.
I
So just as my putter that I won the U.S. Amateurs with is down in Jupiter Hills. It's in a case there too. And trust me, I've thought about going down there and breaking the case a few times and getting it back out. Trust me.
love it.
you
Well,
know,
what a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you for sharing what you shared about autism and what it's come to mean in your life for you and your wife. And if somebody out there is helped by it, then the entire conversation is more than worthwhile. If just one person is encouraged and reminded that they are not alone in that sort of a challenge, right? So thanks for doing that, and it's always good to connect with you.
well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. I thank you for having me on. If the people out there want to know more about the autism and us, you can look billymayfair.org. We have a website to try to help people. One of our functions, my wife and I, are not just working with people who have autism. We're also trying to help family members and siblings that have to deal with the autism because there's no help out there for them.
Okay.
And we are taking it very special and very interesting, trying to help siblings help themselves so they can deal with these problems a lot better.
What a great idea. I will look forward to seeing you hopefully at the Ally Challenge when you come to town.
Absolutely, Bill. Look
And,
forward to it.
play well and tell. We want you coming in on a heater when you get to Grand Blanc.
That sounds good to me. I like that. I
See you
like
later.
that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Bye bye.